smart creatures, man. Very, very smart creatures.
So Charles, you mentioned something earlier. I wanted to get your take on, because I heard this term a long time ago, and it was a long time before I heard a lot of conversation about it. But I've heard this from you when we first met, and I wanted to get your explanation and how you come to this determination and how you sort of picture it. And that's a buck loop. What does that look like for you?
Back touching on my area, I'm dominant. I know what's here, and when it comes down to it, it's mine, right? These bucks are wanting to cover as much area as they can, and they know that a straight line is a straight line, and my vision and sense of sound and smell is only so far each direction. And I've seen these areas so many times where I've mapped out these scrapes and then get some data of, okay, well, that buck, that's his scrape also. And it ends up being these circles. And I'm not talking a perfect circle that you could draw on a piece of paper or on the wall, but they end up, I've seen more often than not, they end up in these circles. And I've seen them do a circle and then cut around into another area. And there may be something at that little transition of the figure eight. And when you find that, I'm going to touch on that here shortly. Well, they may be hitting another little area that they're laying these scrapes down for the benefit of what they know is there. So they're kind of expanding their area of, getting that nose interest and that area of dominance too. So if you get lucky and you're in the woods, you spend the time in the woods, and Onyx is great. It's a great thing. But mark those points, and you realize mark everything. Mark that scrape. Mark that scrape. Mark that scrape. If you got the resources to get some data on those scrapes, get some cameras running. Don't spook your deer off of these scrapes or these runs with your cameras. Put them out in the woods. Put them smart, because they do see that stuff. But if you find that little transition, that little figure eight where they're crossing over and they're running this 7 or 8 day pattern on their scrapes, you're going to see him twice as likely in that one area. But do I have any philosophy of education behind why they do that? Just talking to people over the years that's seen the same things, it's just kind of a natural thing for that animal of covering more territory, of just kind of, because if you think about it, if you drew a circle in the woods, or we all went and stood in a big circle in the woods, and we're all 30, 40, 50 yards apart, if we got enough people in those woods, we can see a lot of each other. But if I've got a straight line of people standing, well, I can only see the people that way and that way, but I don't know what's going on left and right or however you're standing. So they're running these to, if a doe's coming through or they're coming through and they're going to leave their scent and I like what he did, I'm going to peel this and I'm going to go about my business. He can come find me later, kind of thing. It's genius, I think. It's just genius for an animal to just have these habits of laying their scrapes out the way they do, visually presenting the dominance to other bucks. And other bucks that come in to see the scrapes, they may challenge that deer. That's where these sights turn into. Like Rudy said earlier.
You usually see it at nighttime on your cell cams. You're like, oh my God.
Exactly. But you know what? You've seen this deer 3 times on your cell cam at nighttime. Go find where he's at during the daytime.
That's right.
And if it's an hour after dark and you see this deer, one of 2 things is happening. He just got up from his bedding area and he's heading somewhere, or he's heading back to his bedding area. And depending on the conditions, the weather, the time of the year of what he's actually doing. And I'm going to go back to the moon, and that moon's big. These deer see the best in that dusk and dawn. They can see into that light spectrum they see better in the dusk and dawn than they do in broad daylight, and better than they do in the dead of the night, because they can see into that UV spectrum. Where we see the worst in the dusk and dawn, they see the best. So they're coming or going from somewhere. If you saw it 30 minutes into dark on your camera, then where's he going? Where's he coming from? Let me try to figure it out. You sit in the middle of the night, he still came from somewhere, but he may only be making night movements right now just based on the conditions, or 2 of your buddies have been in the woods and they've been just making too much commotion, so they might have spooked him. They might have spooked him off what he was doing for 2 or 3 days. He's not going to leave his area. He's just going to change his habits and patterns just a little bit, but he's still going to do what he's doing. He just may not come do it during daytime for 2 or 3 days till he's comfortable again.
That's right.
So When it comes to the buck loops, do you feel like it sounds like you don't see it as more of like a spider web thing, but more of like a flower where he'll loop out and it. Do you think that's primarily based around checking doe groups, or is it? I guess cruising would be the same thing, but
it's checking doe groups and knowing the doe activity in those areas, knowing what those groups are doing. He knows what they're doing, so he's wanting to over-identify himself to where when the time comes, I've left my mark. I've left my scent. I've left my mark. And you'll start seeing some of these traits too, and you'll realize just by looking at the trait, that's a young buck.
yeah.
And people have asked me, well, how do you know? I said, well, look how he cleaned it. Look what he did when he snipped the limbs and he rubbed his lands, and he's overly aggressive. Like if I walk in and I see a trait that's a 48-inch trait, well, when he's pawing that thing out, you're going to kind of see his paw, the width of his toes, and you're going to see somewhere he stepped in it, but it's sloppy. It's just kind of, it's hard to explain. It's years and years of seeing traits and then seeing the does the bucks that were making the traits, and then you see this trait, and you just instantly know, like, hey, this is a 1.5 to 2.5 year old deer. He's been running with a good buck. He's learned how to do this from somewhere. It's just not all natural, but he doesn't know what he's doing yet.
Yeah.
And what he's going to do is he's going to end up getting whooped off of where he's at. Something much smarter, much bigger than him is going to come in there and going to take it away from him. But he's trying.
If you have a philosophy around, hey, this buck's on a loop, some sort of pattern of a loop. I'm seeing them every 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, whatever it looks like, and I've seen that consistently, like over this week's time frame. Like you said, maybe you're not able to capitalize on it that year, but the next year when it comes around, maybe you see the same buck, and he's like, man, I'm not sure if I'm gonna see him a couple of days. If you feel like you start to have some understanding around that, how would you hunt that? My thought is, and not to take your answer away, but what does that tell somebody? Does that tell somebody they need to stick a spot out, or does that tell somebody, man, I need to go dig further and find more of an intersection. I need to find a terrain feature. I need to find where these loops, maybe multiple loops, are crossing paths? Or do you feel like that's more beneficial, or it's more beneficial to, hey, he was here, I'm just going to stick it out and I'm going to get him when he passes back through, or another buck passes through?
Both of those are beneficial depending on the situation. He's doing what he's doing because the doe are doing what they're doing. Always know what your doe are doing. If it's getting close and your doe are still on their patterns and they're still in that area, he's going to be more frequent. If the doe have shifted a little bit and he's still running his big slow patterns, I've seen 6, 7, 8 day patterns, then stick it out. But if your doe are staying kind of concentrated, and they're staying concentrated to the bedding and the food source, and these doe, they're a little less worried about their bedding. They'll lay up in just whatever area, right? They'll lay up in a grassy field. Where he's going to be very strategic. He wants to be able to hear. He wants to be able to see it. He wants to cover. So what the doe are doing is going to be depending on what you want to do. Always know what your doe are doing. No matter what kind of property you're hunting, know what your doe are doing. If my doe are really active in that area, and I know they're still active in that area, and it's getting close, and he's getting more eyes on, more paying attention, then I'm not going to stick out an area that's kind of been not a lot of doe activity, and I haven't been seeing him but every 5, 6, 7 days on my cameras, or every 10 days on my cameras. I'm going to probably have cameras set up over here already because I know the doe are active over here already. And that's where you're going to realize, man, that dude's there every 2 or 3 days. That's where I'm going to be. But if you don't have all of that data and you don't have the resources and the cameras in the woods, then stick it out. If I know he's coming through there, try to pattern him as best as you can based on that situation and stick it out. If you're able to stay up as best as you can with what the doe are doing, he's going to be doing what the doe are doing. He's going to be closer to them. And as it gets closer, he's going to get closer to them to the point he's tending them. He don't care now. He's just tending the doe.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into that. because it may depend on how much time you have. It may depend on your property size. It may depend on, like I think those two are kind of the big keys, right? It's like, do I have enough time to wait him out? Because if you go chasing him, like I got him here, but he's not going to be here probably tomorrow because he's probably moving on. And I got him on a camera 800 yards away. I'm gonna go hunt there tomorrow. You're saying, do you think it's more likely that you'll never catch up to him? It's better to stay put. Yeah, when you get into that, because it's the rut, and we're talking about the rut, right? I don't think it's beneficial to chase a deer during the rut. I think like you said, you either stick it out where he's gonna come back through, or you go find the does. You don't chase the buck himself, right?
That's it. Whether his pattern or the does. You don't chase him. Don't. Okay, well, he's been here, but I missed him here. He's gonna be over there. You run the risk of bumping him off. You run the risk of him not being there because he shifted just a little bit because of what the does are doing. So stick to the one spot that you know, or go to where the does are. If it's another one of his spots, but don't. Well, yeah, he was here yesterday, but like you said, 800 yards away or 400 yards, whatever, totally different hunting area. And then you try to get over there and get set up, and then you realize, well, he's not here. And then you got this camera that went off. Damn, he was over here this morning instead of over here. He was either not to where I thought he was going to be yet, or he's already where I thought he was going to be, and he's further. And don't go chasing him.
Yeah, so sounds like every one of us who has too many trail cameras to look at.
And pattern the does, and then make the best decision for that day, the conditions of that day. Make that decision for that day. Don't go chasing him. Pattern him.
Yeah.
Stick to that spot, or go get where the does are.
Yeah. What's your thought on that, Rudy? I think I know what you're going to say, but just say it.
Well, I mean, you already know I hunt the doe groups. But yeah, it's for me, just kind of relating to what y'all are all talking about. I got really hung up on that real giant 8-point last season, and it was funny how the way he came in, and I was trying to pattern him. He come in for like 2 or 3 days, so the day I'd get him on day one, here I go, and I'm like checking the conditions, looking. I'm like, okay, I can make it work. I can make this approach. Let's go, and I get in there. And just never, I almost feel like I failed myself because I don't know. I feel like I could have pulled it off. But I guess we'll know this year. I think he made it.
If he made it,
that's what we like. We like to know that, hey, that guy that I was after, he's available. He's available again in October or September 27th. He's available again.
Yeah, I don't know if I get in there till late October. We'll see.
Yeah, but as long as you catch him somewhere, you're like, hey, I know I got him on camera. I know he's here, but I know where he's going to be in a month, And then you stack in
September and set cams, and then I'll back out until October, probably mid or late.
You mentioned the moon, and I know planning hunts with you in the past. I know that's probably right up there with the best weather pattern, but you can't predict the weather 6-8 months out because right now, I'm sure you've got dates marked on the calendar for late October, November for when that moon phase is right for you, right? So what do you feel like is that primary aspect around the moon that you hunt off of? How do you use it?
So what we all want as a hunter is we want a full moon all day, right? Yeah, so the last 4 or 5 years, we've had that full moon at nighttime. But the other best part of that moon is that new moon. That new moon, that little rut phase, first new moon after the winter solstice. I'm sure you've heard people talk about that. And maybe that's a case that fits better for that area where they're hunting, whether it be Texas or some other state. But we all know what several animals and mammals do with the moon. We if we want to get funny about it, like we know what werewolves do during the moon, but the tides change, the fish change their patterns, anything right down to your squirrels, your raccoons, and change their patterns. I think the hogs are the only dang thing in the woods that just don't care. But right, these deer do. It's something with that moon, and I like to that 3 days before, 3 days after that new moon, because if we get into the science of hunting, and I'm one of those people like, oh, there's a balloon in the woods. Well, that lets me know there's a thermal area there. And if we start talking about thermal areas, and we start talking about barometric pressure changes, and we start talking about all this stuff, right? That moon changes things when it's up there and it's doing what it's doing with its gravitational pull. And these animals act different. And I've seen so many times, and like I said, probably the last 4 bucks I've shot out here on this MLB property was within 3 days of that new moon. And one of the deer I shot was dang near in the middle of the day. And it's, for some reason, I don't know what it is. And I hear a lot of people talk about that moon being number 4, number 5 on their list. Mm-hmm. When it is the new moon, it's number 1 on the list. Why not, right? Why not be in those woods if there is known abnormal activity? And I'm going to call that abnormal activity. I've seen deer do things on a full moon and a new moon that is totally off of their pattern for whatever reason it is. If it's psychological, I wish I knew the explanation behind it. But I know with 45 years old, I've been hunting since I could probably walk. What I've seen around that moon tells me enough information. Be in the daggum woods and be in the woods all day. Take you a sandwich, take you some Vienna sausages, whatever gets you through that day. If you got to move around 2 or 3 times, if you can't sit more than 3 hours, then you know what? Stand up, get up, do what you got to do, but be in the woods all day. If you can.
So, do you lean more towards moon phase or moon position? Sounds like moon phase. Right.
Moon phase. And of course, you got a full moon all night long. We can't hunt in the middle of the night. I mean, you can, but you're not going to want the repercussions and the fines that come along with it. But yeah, moon phase is huge.
And I really like the way you answered that, because it was a no BS. You're not trying to create a theory that doesn't exist. All you're saying is that you're not trying to base it off of light. You're not trying to base it on a spike in hormones. You're not trying to base it on, you're saying, I don't know what it is, but I'm telling you with my eyes and ears and all my time in the woods, which you've spent plenty of time out there, that something is different. There's something about the movement that changes. There's something about the activity that more often than not is likely to slant in your favor. Don't know what it is, don't care, right? It means I'm going to be there.
Maybe they can't sleep, maybe they can't stay still, maybe their ADD over elevates.
I mean, it's exactly what it is. He's saying, it's something about it, and I am with him 100% on it.
The anxiety races, we don't know.
Hey, Big Louie, the buck I killed last season, the big buck, not the triple slam buck, but the other big 10-point. Yeah, that deer was on a full moon.
On a full moon, brother. And everyone listen to this in the comments. Give us your feedback. Give us your thoughts. We'll weed through the BS, but let's hear your thoughts on this, because I'm sure we could deep dive the World Wide Web and get some kind of scientific explanation. But I know from years and years of experience, like I said, that maybe they just can't lay still. Maybe it's some anxiety thing. I don't know what it is.
Man,
but Seth, you remember that year?
ChatGPT, they got the answer for everything.
Y'all just wait till the AI is decided the human race isn't worthy anymore. That's
it's the inner Google. It's the inner Google. They got ask the inner Google.
Well, Seth, you remember that morning on the new moon, November 4th? I slammed that big gnarly buck down in the wolf den down at the creek bottom.
Yeah.
You were on your way to the lease that day, Johnny, Steve, Kyle, and Mike was up there. I think Mike was there. And you had that little beer can you were driving that you ran over that deer with. Was that the silver bullet?
Yeah.
Brother, let me tell you, I'm sending out pictures. I slammed I shot 2 deer that day. I shot a doe and a buck that day.
Yeah, because wasn't that when you saw the big deer that I had the encounter with the day after, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
No, that was that same evening.
Yeah.
Same evening. I'm at camp. Seth is on his way. He comes sliding into camp in that little silver bullet. I'm talking sideways, son. As soon as he gets out, he's unloading camo. He's pulling his bow out, and he's pulling his rifle out. He can't decide which one he wants to go. And I'm telling everybody, where y'all going to go, blah, blah, blah. And I said, man, B-plot's been hot. B-plot's been hot. Nobody want to go to B-plot. So I go over there. I sit on B-plot. I'm sitting there watching the birds, doing what I do. and here comes a doe. Here comes a little basket buck. And here comes a really, really nice, I don't know what you said that deer was, Seth. You see the videos?
Oh, I saw the deer in person. I'm pretty sure it was the same deer. Oh, he was probably high 130s for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. A mid 130s guaranteed. Put him on the ground, get a better look at him.
But you had just shot
this deer for 45 minutes, walking around. I'm texting our members. I think Kyle's texting, shooting. Everybody's, and I'm having a hell of a time. Right? It's a new moon. I shot a nice buck that morning. I'm just having. It was the next day I shot the doe, but it was just deer everywhere. But I was seeing them. Nobody else was seeing them.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. You were there. Everybody was kind of trickling in. I was trying to get there, and you're texting us, and you're like, "Hey, the woods are hot," and it's not a giant piece of property, right? So it's not like 5,000 acres, and you're out on the edge because we know everything is. But anyway, you're talking about the moon. It is kind of everything, right? That's what you were telling everybody. Like, hey, the deer are moving. Like I'm seeing deer crossing our four-wheeler trails, and I'm driving around. I shot this buck. I'm seeing does moving. Like
they're not chasing the does. It wasn't rut. It wasn't really. It might have been a little bit of pre-rut going on, but it wasn't. They're turning on kind of situation. It was just during that new moon, and they were just all over the Dickgum woods, like all hours of the day. And 3 or 4 days before that, normal activity. 3 or 4 days after that, normal activity. But it just turned up.
It's kind of a funny story because if you don't mind, so when I get there, Charles he videos this buck wide open in a food plot in the middle of like not even far from camp. Like you said, it's usually the doe farm, so to speak, but nobody really hunts it. Charles goes there, watches this buck walk around with not a tree around him for 60 yards in either direction, just like he's never been threatened before in his life. And everybody knows. Charles thinks it's funny to tell everybody because he already killed a big deer. So he's like, y'all have at him, it's not my problem anymore, And so the guys, they're flipping coins at camp trying to see who's going to get to hunt. This person's going to hunt in the morning, this one's going to hunt in the evening. And somebody did hunt that spot and saw that deer. I think they spooked it. I think somebody spooked it when they got out of the stand. He was in the tree line anyway. I was like, well, now that deer knows somebody's on him. And I tried to think about where that deer might go or where he might end up, now that he kind of knows he's being hunted. So I went down to a different side of the property, kind of in this drainage. And I was like, man, if that deer's off in the thicket and he's probably not coming back to that area in daylight, I was like, I'm going to slip down here and see if there's any sign down here and see if I can set up, because I had scouted that place the year before. And I got down there, and I had put a ground blind in that area for Dad. But my plan was always to just go in there and just kind of hang and hunt. And I went in that area, and that drainage runs right up to that big plot. And I was like, man, if that deer, he's not sitting right. I was like, man, I just feel like nobody's going to see him there anymore. So if you're going to see him, you're going to be you got to be in the woods, so to speak. You got to be on a feature.
That's what brother. You made a heck of an educated decision.
Yeah, so and understanding where that drainage ran and the connections, and I was like, I think this is worth a shot, on short notice. And I get down there, and it kind of pisses me off because we had that ground blind there, and it was in a good spot, but I had it there for Dad. I don't really like to hunt out of the ground blinds, but I got enticed to it because it was there, and we put a lot of work into it. I was like, man, I'm going to just hit the ground blind. So I went, got in that ground blind, and I wasn't even done setting up. And it was right on the edge of a real steep drainage where, you look out of the edge of the blind and, you're looking 20 foot down into this ravine. And it's steep. You would slide down it. And that ground blind was right up on the edge of that bench kind of. And that buck was standing in the very bottom of that ditch, just barely walking, just walking, nipping, walking. And I lost my mind and had a gun and a bow with me in that blind. And everybody knows how tall I am about now. I'm 6'5", so my draw and my arrow is like 9 foot wide. That's why I don't like to get in ground blinds too. So, and it's funny because
this dude ain't shooting arrows; he's shooting spears with his drone.
Yeah. So
no shit.
And from when I scouted that, the reason we set that ground blind there is because there's kind of a bend in like a little oxbow in that creek system. And there's a point like that's pretty steep, like I described, but there's a point where it's the lowest, where that one of those points kind of reaches all the way down closest to the part of the creek. And I was like, man, if I was a deer ever crossing through this system, that's where I'd cross. That's why we put that blind there. He gets to that point and starts to walk up it in front of me, and he stops about halfway, and he's not cresting up where you can see just yet. And my God, it's terrible. My arrow gets.
He didn't tell me this full story till a day or two later.
No, because it was horrible to talk about. So it's horrible, bro. It's horrible. So my broadhead, I was shooting a fixed blade, 3-blade broadhead, and it had gotten stuck in the blind. And when I was trying to pick up my bow, I couldn't pick it up, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, my broadhead was hung up, like stuck through the blind. And I couldn't figure it out. So I was like, man, maybe my mental block literally won't let my muscles pick the bow up because I'm so scared and nervous. So I was like, just pick the damn bow up. So I pulled it, and it popped. Like the broadhead popped back into the blind, and he heard it. And he took off. And he ran down the creek system and then kind of went up this little steep face, but he got up there and he stopped. So at this point, he was at like 22 yards. And he gets over there, and now he's about 70. And he's through the tree, but I can see him. I can see his whole neck. So I got my gun. I threw my gun up, threw it out there, and just tried to put it on his neck and squeezed off a shot. And he just runs off. It just echoes throughout that system. I'm like, I didn't hit that deer. And at this point, I don't know whether to cry, scream, cuss, like who to call.
You probably did it all, don't lie.
I mean, it was the worst day of my life. I mean, it was literally one of the worst days of my life. And I was like, well, I got to go see if I hit the deer anyway, just in case. I walk up there, nothing, no blood, nowhere, And you can ask Charles. I got back to camp. I was so livid. I was about to pack my shit and leave, or pack my stuff. Sorry, and leave. Dad was like, son, it's going to be all right. And I was like, no, you don't understand. You get one chance out here, one chance in these woods. And I screwed it up. I'm like, I couldn't kill him I had 2 weapons and I couldn't kill him with either one. And I was like, it's stupid, Dad. I screwed it up. It's like, that's my one chance for the season. You see 2 good bucks maybe a year. If you don't kill them, it's over. So I'm packing my shit and I'm going home. I just started packing up.
Rudy, I've never seen him so defeated, man. I'm talking defeated. Somebody just took all his lunch money, kicked him out of band camp. He was defeated, bro.
So I went in the camper. And everybody left me alone. I went in the camper for probably an hour. And I came out, they're all standing around the fire and everything. And it's funny because they kind of knew it wasn't really time to joke yet. So they were like, well, you all right? I'm like, I don't know. And you almost had him, son, And Charles like, man, you were there, man. You're in the right spot. Everybody's trying to cheer me up. And I'm like, yeah, but I screwed it up, man. And then it took about an hour worth of grieving after the hour worth of sobbing to kind of get to the point where I could laugh at it at least a little bit, but it was a big deer. And I was, happy about the decision I made on where I went. And I was like, man, I couldn't believe I actually saw this deer. If I'd have been able to kill that thing and bring it back to camp when everybody was wanting to hunt the food plot and the feeders and everything, and I was like, it would have made a great point. And it gave me, I still got the confidence aspect of it of, hey, there's something to thinking differently,
as a woodsman, excellent decision, man. You just didn't capitalize.
Yeah, and I didn't even get him on film either. He was literally, when I first saw him in that ditch, he was probably 10 yards from me, and I couldn't believe that he was that close, but he was so steep down in there. And And then I was like, how long was he walking? And he was in, it's funny because he was in the narrowest part, at the very bottom of the ditch. He wasn't side hilling. He was just walking down the center of the ditch, and seeing a deer like that close, like 10 yards. Like I said, I had to like peek out the window and look 20 foot down in the ditch, which when you're looking at a grade point, he was 20 foot down there, and it probably only took about 5 yards to get that far down and steep. So, I mean, he was like way down there, and like looking over the top of him, and I was like, oh my God. Like, and I recognized it because I had Charles's video. I was like, that's that buck. That's a huge buck. It'd be my biggest deer ever, my biggest bow buck ever. He probably would still be to this day, my biggest deer ever. But yeah, pretty interesting.
Your dad had me go in there and pull your pillowcase off and hang it up because it was pretty wet. But you learn from that, man. It's but here's the thing, brother. I know we don't have a whole heck of a lot of time, but we've all been there at some point. And if you haven't, well, guess what? You just haven't hunted enough. We've all been there, man. Next time we'll share my story that kind of got me to step out of bow hunting. And don't get me wrong, I didn't mean to step all the way out of it, but I did. And that's a good conversation there, man. It was just things didn't go right for me, and it was hard for me to recover from.
It's hard for me to talk about this whole subject in a little bit of time because I, as a tracker, can sit here and talk about this with you and relate in situations. And it's unfortunate that you stepped out of the tracking community, the bow hunting. All in all, not that you meant to, like you said, but you did it because there was an incident, and I had a track recently this past season alone that a lady, had a few series of misfortunate events, and she basically told me, like, when I came out there, if we don't find this deer, not that it was trying to put pressure on me, but she was just this defeated that I'm selling all my bow shit and I am done. It was a journey that I took 10 years ago and I still haven't completed it, and I'm done, and she's like, I'm tired of, and she's killed a lot of pigs. It's just the deer, she gets buck fever, she's she shoots plenty,
Yeah.
But
that's something people eventually get past, and sometimes it takes putting that big buck down to.
She shot a monster. She shot a monster, and I can understand why she felt the way she did.
I was going to say,
She's like, I swear, I hate it good.
I was going to ask you, was that the one? I remember you said it was a big deer.
Yeah, Deuce found it. So, y'all, do you want me to tell it? I mean, we don't got time. I don't know. Yeah,
we'll save that one. We'll loop back and we'll finish up. Kind of on the end of that story, kind of the moon conversation, and then we'll move into some final questions for Charles, I think.
Yeah, because I was about to get lost in the whole tracking story, and I'm like, do you really want me to tell this story right now? Because I can talk.
That's why you're so fun, dude. You've got endless amount of stories.
I know.
But
sorry.
That's Charles is the same way. That's why I told you when we get this, we're going to need at least 2 hours, and then probably plus another 2 episodes later on, and then in the season stuff. But no, I mean that was a whole situation. Like, wrap that up. Would you trade when you're looking at the calendar? And I know you're big on historical data. That's a must when it comes to rut hunting. Doe groups, funnels, hunting the rut. And then you're kind of looking for those conditions. You're looking for the timing. Are the actual dates more important than how much are you willing to trade off the actual dates to hit that moon phase?
We'll take that if you say, Charles, pick a date to be in the woods right now. I don't know the future cast of the weather and all that stuff, but I got an idea when the rut's going to be. I'm going to pick that new moon that is in that prime time I'm looking at. And this year, you mentioned it, where we're falling there in the end of October, that last week of October with that new moon. I'm going to take that new moon number one. I wish it was a actual glowing full moon up during the day, but it's last 5 or 6 years it's been sweeping through at nighttime, and we're getting some of the end of that full moon for 2, 3, 4 hours in the morning, 2, 3, 4 hours in the evening, different times of day, but not at the time of year that I want it. I want it middle to late October into as far as December. That secondary rut, people don't need to forget about that secondary rut. And it's 27 to 32 days later, and we can get on that next time too. But I'm going to take that new moon first. Just for the fact, for me, and 99 people may blow up the comments of I've hunted every new moon since I was 5 years old, and I've never done that. And that's great. That's your experience in your woods. And I'm talking about a span of woods in East Texas from Houston County through Cherokee County all the way into Nacogdoches County. We're in the piney woods. That's my experience. I'm going to take that new moon first because I know what I can do pre-rut, during rut, post-rut. I know that I can get in there and figure things out and best educate a good guess to be in the right spot at the right time. I know at that point I can pattern something, right? We're trying to pattern these animals. But I know with my experience that new moon, and something scrambles with them or whatever the situation is, and I just know I want to be in the woods based on historical data for me personally.
Gotcha. So
half of my deer I have shot on a new moon or under a full moon in my life. Guaranteed half of my deer.
So here's
probably more.
Yeah, and you've killed some big deer. You've killed a lot of bucks. So here's a direct question. Looks like the new moon this year, there's one on October 21st.
Uh-huh.
And then there's another one November 19th, 20th. Looks like
counter, you're gonna see where Charles is not gonna be, not at work.
Looks like full moon is somewhere around the 4th or 5th of November. I know you kind of love that 7th through the 10th date range, but so based on that, you've got a new moon November 19th, new moon October 19th or 20th, roughly.
Somewhere.
When are you going? And then you got a full moon November 4th, 5th.
All three. All three, brother, just because
you don't get three.
I'm going to look at the rise and set time, and then I'm going to make a decision of how I'm going to focus for morning or evening. And it's not going to be an all-day hunt. But with that full moon, let's not forget one key feature: the underfoot. And that moon is at its fullest peak of wherever it's at in the sky at midnight. Guess where I'm probably going to be 12 hours later?
Mm-hmm.
At lunchtime, I'm going to be sitting in the stand. I probably won't get up and go out to the stand till 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I'm going to go sit there till middle of the evening, or I'm going to go sit there all day. So if that new moon is shining its beautiful glow all night long, I'm gonna hit the underfoot of it.
Yeah.
We still have a whatever magnetic change on the earth, and animals act a little different, and that's what this whole conversation, and that's what all your podcasts have been so great about, is conversations about experience, conversations about other people's experience, and someone listening to this can take some of this knowledge, put it with their situation, and grow their hunting from it, and then they're going to pass that on to their children, or they're going to pass that on to their friends. And the hunt community stays strong with social media.
There ain't gonna be no deer left. There ain't gonna be no deer left.
Well, come on now.
I'm just kidding.
In Texas, we have over 5 million deer. Now, 60 to 70% of them are in the Edwards Plateau area. But if you look at the guesstimated deer population in other states, I think there's only one state that might come close to having 2 million deer. We're roughly about 3 times the deer population of any other state. Now, and everybody can Google that. That's kind of what it is. Now, yes, there are some big deer up north. We know you're not going to shoot a 240-pound buck in East Texas. If you do, they're few and far between. And I had one that came real close, but it wasn't a 240-pound buck. But you can go up north and shoot a 135-inch deer that'll hit the scale close to 300 pounds. But if you want to talk about concentrated deer population, Texas has got it. Texas has got it. And those tiny woods, there's 300,000 deer just in that area, just on general consensus of data for probably the last 10 years. The harvest rate is 15 to 17, 18% annually.
Yeah.
We're not going to kill all the deer.
Yeah.
We're going to kill less deer than motor vehicles and disease and coyotes. And I'm going to throw a little thing out there. If you're on a property, manage your property. These predators, these bobcats, these coyotes, spend some time getting rid of them. you're going to see a huge increase in your deer population. Right now, these fawns are hitting the ground. Right now, there's some been hitting the ground 2 weeks ago. Buddy of mine, Steve, he sent us a couple pictures that day. One standing at a feeder behind his house. She looked like she was carrying a barrel in her stomach. Her meal sack was so thick it looked like it was about to start oozing out. This is the time of year where these predators are really, that's where the hurt for the deer population is.
Yeah.
If you got a property and you want to manage it, do everything you do for the deer, the feeding, the food plots, but get out there with your buddies and start putting some hurting on these coyotes and these bobcats and stuff, and get as many of them going as you can. You'll be amazed if you do that 2 or 3 years in a row, what your deer population is going to change, what it's going to do.
Yeah, Rudy mentioned that recently too. Made the point that many of us as a hunter population in general probably don't do that enough. We don't make a point to do that, and we think that we need to do that if we own the property, but really,
public land needs help.
Yeah,
it needs that bad.
And here's the thing: that coyote walks out, punch it. If you don't want to strip your area, that round going off may spook something that's close to you. And if you put it on the ground and you blow your area, you know what? I'm all about being ethical, and there should be some people listening that don't want to hear it. Throw a round through that gut, and that sucker run off somewhere else and not be an issue anymore.
That's it.
Punch it, get it going. Because you know what you're doing? All right, well, I'm out here, I'm hunting, and I don't want to shoot a coyote. I just want him to keep on going because I'm out here hunting deer. Well, guess what? He's following that area for a reason. And you want to talk about a scent trail being laid down? You can walk through those woods eating a bag of Doritos and farting all over yourself after a round of beans and broccoli, and it's not going to affect those deer as bad as that coyote scent walking through there.
Yeah, I try to.
I can definitely agree.
I love shooting a good coyote. I'll shoot him every time.
And you got a varmint problem, and you want some help eradicating it, and you're in the Southeast Texas area. Send Seth a message on his channel, and we'll dispatch out a couple of people, and we'll make it worth our while. If you make it worth our while, we'll help your property improve.
Well, you've
I know plenty of shooters, and I've done some eradication over the years, and there's a lot of us that's got the equipment to do it.
Yeah, you've done some. You've done some property management over the years between your grandfather's property, some neighboring properties, and other properties that you've done eradication and stuff for. So I know Charles actually he's got some experience in the management side and stalking deer and things like that.
He's experience on the shooting side.
You got some experience on the shooting side. Charles.
Put it this way: the equipment I have, if I can see it, I can stop its heart. I've got one sitting over here 20 foot from me that out to a mile, it's pretty good. 338 Lapua, and it's a precision rifle.
So we've been going like almost 2 hours. So I think what we'll do is we'll come back for some additional topics. I want to talk about the transition to hunting like MLDs and leases, and because you're still killing a lot of bucks, and you tend to kill them away from kind of the popular areas, the food plots, the pipelines. You do hunt those sometimes, but you tend to be strategic about it.
And when I've got the data to hunt them.
Yeah, and then from seems like year to year you're shooting your bucks away from those. So you're hunting off the regular pressure and things like that and different features. So I want to talk about that next time. But since we brought it up, like you've done some competitive shooting, you've done long range shooting, you've done tactical training, tactical shooting. You shoot a lot. So for anybody looking to, they're coming into their own with their rifle selections when they're going after, medium to big game. So like, what would be your go-to, maybe traditional rifle, round and cartridge, and then, maybe, AR platforms are real popular these days. So like, what would be a couple of your go-tos for that?
And so let's touch base with AR platforms, and let's go to what we're going to call, the traditional known calibers. So everyone knows your traditional AR, 223, 5.56. It serves its purpose, but it's not your deer cartridge. And the next time we have this on the next cast, I'm gonna aggravate a bunch of people and tell them about how my first 4 deer I killed was with a Remington Model 70 223, 55 grain special round, and I'm next shooting these deer below the skull, and shot placement. But you got your 6.5 Grindles and stuff out there that are really, really good, what I call wildcat cartridges. That's going to be a multi-purpose round. But if you're coming to your own, you're getting into the deer hunting, know what your feather shot's going to be. there's been several 30-06 and 308 caliber guns that have taken some tremendously long shots. If your budget's $400 or $500, run to the Academy and buy that Remington 770 that's got a decently cheap but functional 3x9 by 40, 44 millimeter scope on it. Check the torque settings by inch pounds on all your scope rings and mounts. Find an ammo that it likes, and that's where we're going to touch on if we have the time on the next go around. Not every gun likes every ammo. I've had cheap guns shoot cheap ammo very well, and cheap guns shoot good ammo very well, and I've had very expensive guns not shoot any good ammo very well and shoot bad ammo very well. So your projectile, your grain weight, but the area you're hunting. A lot of your East Texas hunting, you're not taking a shot out past a couple hundred yards unless you're hunting a pipeline or some big sendero cut through the woods. That is what it is. But stick to your 30 caliber rounds. Stick to what your budget is, but find the bullet that gun likes. Go buy 5 or 6 boxes of bullets and go out, put that thing in a vise, put it in a lead sled, and find out what that gun likes. You got your 270s, you got your 280s, you got your 30-06, you got your 308s. You've got some of your calibers that I hope never get forgotten, your 25-06s.
Mm-hmm.
Your 243 is pretty small caliber, but it's still throwing a 90 to 110 grain piece of lead at a really, really great speed. And that's where I'll get into discussing your projectile. If you want to real quick, if I tell you the best projectile out there, the Barnes triple shot, TTSX. You're never going to go wrong with that round at 50 yards or 500 yards, just for the fact you got a lot of rounds that are really great, but anything you shoot under 100 yards, depending on the feet per second and the energy that thing's carrying, it's going to pistol right through. Your 140 grain AccuBond in a 280 Remington is not really going to get the performance you want until you get out past 125 yards, and then it's going to get all this fold back, it's going to cave in on stuff, the terminal damage, all that stuff. So want to put a caliber, if you want an all-around AR platform, get you a 308 AR-10. A lot of ammo availability out there, and that's the key thing, is selecting your cartridge. You want something that's going to serve the job that you want to do, but you don't want something that's hard to find, and when you do find it, you're going to pay a lot of money for it, or you have limited selection of projectiles. So find something that you can afford or something that's in your budget. Find something that's got some good ammo availability. Go out, see how that thing shoots, what it likes the best, and stick to it. But AR platform, we'll go with the AR-10. Shoot hogs with it, shoot deer with it. It's like a great all-around platform. You want to get a little Wildcat, go with a 6.5 Grendel or something. I guess a little bit more in the ammo and have a little less availability of selection, but that is a caliber that's growing. If you got some 6.5 Creedmoor guys out there, they got AR platforms on those. It ain't necessarily the round of the caliber, it's the projectile. It's the bullet that you're sending down the range, which is where your performance is going to come from, putting that animal down as ethically as possible.
That's right.
No, that's a great point, because I don't know hardly anybody. Everybody puts more emphasis on the type of rifle, that their uncle told them to buy, and then they go buy the whatever compatible cartridge or round is for that weapon, and they go with it because that's what they were told, and they just assume that that's the best round that's going to shoot for that rifle, that's the best projectile. But nobody when people go to shoot for target, they don't go see they don't try different rounds and projectiles, and they don't match that to their gun. I don't hardly know anybody that does that. People are going to go buy the rifle, they're going to buy compatible ammo, and they're going to go try to kill something.
Let me tell you something about every barrel on any rifle made. Based on the specifications of that barrel being made, you got your SAMI pressure specs, that's your chamber pressure. All your bullets are loaded to 89 to 91% of SAMI pressure specs. But that barrel, any gun, is rated sub-MOA, which means you should shoot 1 inch grips or less at 100 yards. Mm-hmm. Now, will it do that with every ammo? No. So that's why you find the ammo that gun likes.
That's right.
Aim small, miss small. Remington Core-Lokt has been around since I was, knee-high to a grasshopper. Mm-hmm. It's let me down a couple times recently, and I got nothing to do with it again, but it's just kind of a good all-purpose round. It's got a really nice soft point that performs really well, and there's multiple calibers that it's available for. It's on just about any shelf you walk into in a store, including Walmart. Now, I'm not saying Remington Core-Lokt's bad. I think there was a lot of ammo that hit the shelves back in what I call the ammo-demic around 21, that they were using cheaper components, and they were using different powders and different primers, and I think a lot of that's cycled out of the system now, but your rifle may love the Remington Core-Lokt and not shoot your Federal Fusions or your Winchester ballistic tips or silver tips or power points or your Barnes triple shocks worth of crap. That's what your rifle likes. Go buy it. Use it. Aim small, miss small. Be ethical with your hunts. If you go out to the range and you set your scope in and you're like, oh, well, I'm within 5 inches at 100 yards, I'm good to go. And don't come to my woods. I'm just gonna be honest with you. You're not hunting on my deer leaves.
Yeah, I have seen on multiple occasions, Charles will very, very, very politely remove you from the property for taking an unethical shot or multiple unethical shots or an ill-advised.
Mistake made.
Yeah, an ill-advised shot. So I don't, especially with a rifle or a firearm, I don't think it's unreasonable to have high expectations, and you owe the animal that. I've been guilty of that in the past. Had some hard lessons around that, but such a good perspective, and I don't think you could emphasize that enough. So I think there's probably a lot less gun education, rifle education around bullet speeds, ammunition, projectiles than there used to be. Even though we have more platforms and content available, I mean, maybe you got your guys.
You're exactly right.
You got your guys who are like kind of nerds about it. They like yourself, they go in depth and they understand it. But for your average hunter, oh my gosh, dude, there's no education there.
And that's the easiest stuff for your average hunter. There's a lot of available resources out there. YouTube University is a great thing. I'm interested in this 150 grain Federal Fusion, blah, blah, blah. Do a little research on it. See what some people are getting some information about it. You got a lot of people doing ballistic gel tests with it. See what it's doing. And if it's something you're interested in and you've got a setup similar to what they're shooting through, see what it does in your rifle. Prove that projectile moving at a certain feet per second out of an 18 to 22-inch barrel with a certain rate of twist is going to perform well. Okay, check that box. It performs well. What's the availability of it? I can pretty much find it anywhere. Check that box. Now, does my gun like that? It's going to perform well, but does my gun like it? I've got some rounds for a 280 Acme Improved that is about $5 a round. They're over $100 a box. And they are ranting and raving about being the most blah, blah, blah round for that. But that gun's probably got a $1,400, $1,500 custom barrel on it. And it hates it. Yeah. I can sit there with my AccuBond rounds. There's 4 or 5 rounds I have for that gun that I can shoot hole inside a hole at 100 yards. I put those rounds in that gun, and my grouping opens up to like 4.5 inches. It just doesn't like it. And you need to go find that out. So use the resources, jump into the World Wide Web, use YouTube, pick some rounds that you want to test in your gun, and go do it. You don't need to know rate of twist and bullet coefficiencies and all that. Find a projectile that performs well, and then make some selections. Pick some for your gun. Go test it on a piece of paper, and get out in the woods.
Yeah, and I think at the basic level, to your point, you should have a minimum expectations of your groupings at 100 and 150 yards. That 4-inch group's not good enough. You need to be driving.
If that 4-inch group is all you can do at 100 yards, don't shoot past 100 yards. Don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Rudy probably has a good, and I've asked Rudy questions over the years because you think Rudy would track a lot of wounded bow deer, during archery season and even, throughout the season, everybody who loves to hunt with a bow throughout the gun season. But Rudy tracks what is the percentage of gun to bow, Rudy? Throughout the year?
I believe it or not, I think that bow season is really, really busy for me. A lot more calls wise, but a lot more serious calls get taken in rifle season.
Yeah, well, and I mean, even if it was like, hey, it's 50-50, or if it's like, you would think that rifle shots are 90% effective, but like, it's not a given. It's That's not necessarily the case.
You've got a 110 grain to a 200 grain piece of lead moving at 2,400 to well into over 3,500 feet per second.
Yeah, and every situation,
you're still tracking deer.
Yeah, and every situation is different. You're talking about shooting at a live animal.
You get that bad shot.
Nervousness.
You get that bad shot. It happens.
Yeah, but like you said,
everything that he said as far as caliber, shot placement, distance, everything, it all adds up, because these are all things that add up to a tracker to tell me realistically what are my odds of helping you recover this deer. Is this thing a flesh wound? Is this thing a serious hit? Is this just, man, did he pull a shot and we got a gut shot deer that didn't leave a lot of blood? Let's say it is like a 223, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to have if not much blood, or any sign, should I say. It's not like it blows through that cavity and like let's say a 30-06 goes through the gut. You're going to find gut matter for good ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That bullet's going to freaking expand. Let's say, it's a big old soft tip on there. It's going to punch its way through the other side, and it's just going to be all kinds of sign. Now, you're still going to need time maybe to, and as a matter of fact, I can't even say that, because I've done gut shot a doe one time, and it only took her, what most would say on a bow shot would take anywhere from 12 to 28 hours before that deer actually expires. With a rifle, it can be anywhere from very shortly after you just gut shot it to, 4 to 8 hours, Yeah.
Quick sometimes with an arrow.
Yeah. And, not to get too far, off in the weeds of effectiveness and things like that, the whole point was I did want to get your perspective on, newer hunters and their rifle selections, things to consider, the level of consideration they should be taken into account and things like that. So there's a couple, there's different options out there, but there's definitely like a tier that you should be staying in. And then couldn't have thought of a better tip than, finding a round that your gun likes, that you shoot well, don't get caught up in other fads or what your uncle told you to buy because he's been shooting it for 30 years, and that, do some due diligence and in that round selection and in that weapon selection. So, dude, I think we got some cool conversations for the future. I want to talk more guns. We've talked in the past about doing some videos, man. I know Charles has some unbelievable.
Everything you want.
He's got unbelievable AR setups, man. He can tear them down, rebuild them, repair them. I've seen him fix countless amount of rifles. He does a lot of really awesome work. So if you have any questions for him, I know Charles doesn't do a whole lot of social media, but you can send us a message if you have any questions. I guarantee you he'll have an answer, and if he doesn't have it offhand, he'll probably have it here shortly. But we ain't got time to go through the different types of platforms that he's got and rifle styles. So that's his thing. So when he says I don't think he has time to bow hunt. He's got too many guns. He can't afford to bow hunt because he's got all this money sitting in safes.
That whole XT 2000 is hanging out in the garage right now with all kinds of dust on it. Old school, brother. I started bow hunting before there was a relief on a draw, man.
Yeah, I know we've talked a lot about bow hunting in the past, and like when we started, kind of, you were like, man, you started shooting the bow in the backyard the last couple of years again, and you're like, man, you're kind of making me want to get after it.
I know, man. It's, get that little burn. Get that. Man, somebody's got me pumped up again.
Yeah, but I know.
Sure at my grandfather's house that I had an old Hoyt Pro Force. That was my first one back in the 90s. I'm sure it's probably up there somewhere. Somebody done walked off with it.
Well, it's getting late, guys. Such a good podcast, I think. So a lot of good stuff, man. Appreciate you coming on, Charles. But I
appreciate the invite, Seth, Rudy. I hope the viewers get something out of this, and let's do this again.
Yeah,
absolutely, man. Really appreciate you again. Thank you for coming on and spending time with us today.
Oh, without a doubt, guys. Anytime, y'all tell me when I'm available. And really, man, we got to hook up and have a beer or something. Seth, like I said, Seth spoke very highly of you, so I'm excited to get to meet you, sir. And let's keep getting ready to do what we do.
Absolutely, man. That sounds like a plan to me.
Yep, I agree.
Sounds good.
Well, appreciate everybody tuning in to this episode of the Texas Public Podcast. Thanks for checking out the channel. Don't forget to generously leave us a subscribe on the YouTube channel and subscribe to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and follow Texas Public Podcast going forward, because, man, and everybody's been talking about, if turkey season's finally over, we can start up with the deer content. I'm like, man, we've been firing on deer since the end of season. So, but and I don't get that, man. I know I got some buddies that are turkey nuts, dude, but Charles actually invited me to do a turkey hunt this year. We never got around to it, but that's for another day. Trying to find some of them East Texas birds that's pretty hard. But no, appreciate everybody checking out the episode, and we'll be back soon enough with another episode of Texas Public Podcast. So we will see you on the next one.